Well, I made two videos that YouTube ate, and this is one of them. So this will probably be a shorter version, but basically, Qtron Man, what I thought might be good is to try to have a conversation which isn't just recasting the same old conversation, same old, same old. Now, I, like you, am willing to have those, but let's try to change it. You kind of turned my comment into an old canard about envy. I don't have the envy of wealth. It's not like I don't envy Bill Gates' wealth. And I said that Microsoft makes crappy engineering. Of course, I got the typical answer for somebody. Well, what do you mean by engineering? Well, I mean things that can be measured by specifications. So, but people bought it. Yeah, I've heard that one before. I'm not saying you shouldn't have had the lion's share. I learned from Microsoft why. In an era when it seemed more exciting to always make something new and new and new, backward compatibility was really important. Also, they shared a lot of source code. I know I programmed for Windows 3.0. They started you off with a lot of really useful source code. And furthermore, I mean, he's a big liberal. He said he was going to give his money away and be a philanthropist and later in his life, which I didn't really believe. I figured I'd believe it when I saw it. Well, I'm seeing it. Okay. What I didn't like is things like the per processor licensing. Why? Because for the economy to work, let's say on the principles of a Randian principle or a market anarchy, this sort of it works naturally, you rely on the choice of the customer being free enough to effect those changes. And in an era when I wanted something besides Windows, be it OS 2 or Linux, there was a barrier put up to me that I consider artificial. Okay? I don't think that leaving that door open meant that Linux would have taken over the whole of everything, and I frankly don't care. I just wanted to have that freedom. So I criticizing a specific thing, and you could give me enough credit as to, you might think I have an ulterior motive and stuff, maybe you still are going to think it's about envy. But there's still an argument there besides envy. But here's what I'd like to do. I want to walk through a thought experiment. And unlike most people, when they give little thoughts experiments or ethical dilemmas, you're supposed to accept things as they are. Not me. As I walk you down the path, you're allowed to say, look, the path really goes this way here. You're going off onto the gravel at this point, or there's a cobblestone out of place. You can do that. I encourage that. I may come back and say, well, let's step over that. That's a part of the suspension of belief in this case. And if I do ask you to do that, and you, out of the kindness of, for the sake of argument, you were to do it, I will know that later on you were allowed to go, well, remember back there when I said we were going awry? It was because we were going to end up here. So, okay. Hold on. Now, I'm going to put it very simple. Imagine in the United States, it could be used with any country, actually. Imagine it in Canada, whatever. But imagine that we all become some form of free market libertarian. And it's just overwhelmingly popular. Call it unanimous, if you like, to privatize the entire government. Okay. So we auction off the government. Let's say it sells for $500 billion. Bargain basement prices, because it's so screwed up. And let's say they take that money and they give it to the people that were supposedly the previous owners. So all the citizens get their share of that. Now, I don't think so far anything in that is not legit, right? There's no rule against the company owning all of the property that the US government owns now. That company would lose certain things like the right to eminent domain. It couldn't draft people. Various things like that. There would be severe limitations on what violence it was allowed to perpetrate. It could only do so to protect its own property. But there's no limit to an international company. God knows where would you get that kind of money or how would you finance it. Again, that is part of the suspension of disbelief. That part's not practical. But there is no Or maybe it is. Somebody can argue it is. But the point is, there's no rule against some company coming in and owning all of that property. Okay. Now the question is, if you were the CEO of that company, what changes would you make? Obviously, you'd have to charge a fee to let people on your roads and still carry their mail, and right? So taxes would just be eliminated through the power of semantics, right? It's not taxes anymore when it becomes a fee. Now, the reason I'm asking this question is because the video that I opened with was questioning the basic abstractions of the devices we use to make our economy. Now, it seems clear to me that the devices we've used and the way we've used them have led to what we have now, which libertarians of all sorts and objectivists, the whole, I know there's factions that don't agree, but just let me call it all one word of some sort. This sentiment that things will just work out natural with a laissez-faire sort of attitude. But they haven't worked out naturally. And you say it's because of the regulation. Fine. But it seems to me that if the system is so screwed up, you might be kind of people that would have a proposal of, oh, hey, maybe this can work that way. Maybe there should be interest on money, or there can't, or you can only make interest on money made this way, or what part of the system would change? Now, because you don't believe in a government authority to impose that system, that's why I'm saying you're the CEO of a privatized US government. And you can avoid the purpose. I'm just telling you the purpose of my question so that you know what I think it is, going back to the video that started this thread of videos. Would you divest? Would you sell off the pieces into smaller chunks? Or would you try to make as profit as possible? Or would you divest in order to make the biggest profit possible? So that is what I'd like to know. And I could put more details in this thought experiment. I thought that that's enough to put a structure. And as I said, too, part of the question is, tell me where you object to following along with the premise of the thought experiment any further. If at the point you say, oh, no, it would never be right to sell the government, you would just have to dissolve it, or, tell me. And if it's something like, well, I don't think the money should go to those people, or so, well, then that's going to be interesting to me, so go ahead and say it, but it's not going to make a material change on sort of the points that are trying to be illuminated. And it is not a got you. I simply think that you could have an organization with the property of the United States. It could be a private organization, and I'm curious what you would do about it. In terms of currency and money, would you still issue currency? Would you issue more than one kind of currency? Would you put it on a gold standard? If not, would you put it on a commodity standard? What would you do in this situation? And anything else you want to bring in, like the obligations of such an organization, or perhaps, as I said, maybe the sale isn't ethical and there would have to be some other way. Maybe it's unethical to sell the whole government, and you would simply have to give the part of the federal government, in San Francisco to the people of San Francisco, or I don't know. So you take it wherever you like, and if there's not enough structure, I'll add some more structure. But I am trying to provoke some sort of analysis of the system that isn't just who's in control, how much, or if there's taxes, but an actual analysis that gets to, well, hey, do any of these abstractions that we rely on without questioning, do they contribute to the fact that the system has failed to achieve what anyone says they want so far? Cheers.